Deep within the icy wilderness of northern Canada lies a secret buried, for decades, that a radio frequency that whispers the names of vanished children, and a supernatural presence breathing cold into the night, that I end this story. The lines between reality and nightmare blur as we descend into a psychological and supernatural horror like no other, if you dare to uncover the truth. Join us and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more chilling tales waiting just beyond the static. The Forgotten Signal. The Vanishing Broadcast. Aaron Grant, a documentary filmmaker, traveled to the remote north of Canada to investigate something strange. The old radio station, CKUV-FM, abandoned since 1987, had mysteriously resumed broadcasting. The frequencies weren't listed anywhere official. The locals whispered about it, but no one dared to investigate the N01, except Aaron. Inside the station, dust covered everything. The equipment was rusted, yet something was still transmitting. As Aaron scanned the frequencies, he stumbled upon 104.6 MHz, a low, crackling frequency carrying a woman's whisper. She was calling out a child's name, over and over. Then he found a handwritten note taped to the transmitter. Do not open the door if the frequency has chosen you. You are already being watched. Suddenly, heavy static blasted through the speakers. Then footsteps. From behind the locked soundproof door, Aaron froze. The clock above the door struck 3:33 a.m., and every single watch and timer in the room stopped. The warning of Niska. Aaron sought out someone who might know more, an elder Cree woman named Niska, who had lived in the area all her life. When Aaron told her about the frequency and the voice, her expression turned cold. She poured him tea and said, "The land sleeps, but every 27 years, it wakes up, and it remembers." She told him stories of missing children from decades ago. All had heard whispers. All had drawn the same symbol before vanishing, a circle crossed by 3 lines. All disappeared at 3:33 a.m. Aaron didn't believe her at first, but when reviewing drone footage from the radio tower, he noticed something chilling. A small child, standing motionless near the abandoned tower, pale, expressionless. Niska dropped her cup when she saw the image. "That's my grandson. He vanished in 1981. Daddy hasn't aged a day." The signal's reach. Aaron brought in help Dr. Lillian Moore, a renowned paranormal researcher and neuropsychologist. She examined the 104.6 MHz frequency and found it was unlike anything she'd studied before. The wave pattern subtly shifted, almost as if designed to slip into the subconscious mind. Aaron began to change. He grew distant, distracted. He often murmured in his sleep. Lillian set up monitoring equipment at 3:33 a.m. His brain waves spiked violently. The signal was doing something to him. That night, while Aaron was sleeping, the voice recorder captured this. "You found me. Now it's your turn." The child and the static. Aaron woke on the cold studio floor. It was dawn, or at least he thought it was. The sky outside was black. The last thing he remembered was walking into the woods, drawn by a whisper only he could hear. His recorder was still on. The audio was filled with static, but buried deep in the noise was laughter, a child's laughter. Then a voice, clear and sharp. "You don't belong here." Lillian found him soon after. He was sitting silently, speaking to an empty chair. "Why did you come back?" he whispered to it. She shook him, and he finally looked at her. "He's trapped in the frequency. We need to help him." Despite her skepticism, Lillian reviewed the recordings. The signal changed frequencies every few minutes subtly, but in a pattern designed to influence the mind. They returned to Niska's cabin. The old woman greeted them with a solemn nod. "It has chosen you," she said to Aaron. She handed him a leather-bound notebook filled with old Cree symbols, ritual instructions, and journal entries from decades ago, all referencing the same frequency. One symbol stood out, an inverted circle with 3 lines. Aaron recognized it instantly. IT had appeared in his drone footage, burned into the snow beneath the tower. That night, Lillian left for the regional lab with the data. Aaron stayed behind 83:33 a.m. The radio turned on by itself. "I'm still here, tell me," came the voice. Aaron grabbed the microphone. "I hear you, where are you?" he whispered. For 2 seconds, the static cleared. On the screen appeared a narrow hallway, a child walking away. His voice echoed, "Come to me, but come alone." The corridor that shouldn't exist. Aaron stood still, eyes fixed on the screen. The hallway he saw in the broadcast didn't exist, not in the radio station, not anywhere near the site. And yet, the video feed was unmistakably real. The floor was made of cracked tiles. Old medical charts hung crooked on the walls. And at the far end, a door slowly creaked open into blackness. The child in the feed stopped. His back was still turned. "Come to me," he said again, his voice impossibly close, as if whispered directly into Aaron's ear. Aaron blinked in. The screen went dark. He grabbed his gear and flashlight and stepped outside. Snow crunched beneath his boots as he walked toward the tower. The surrounding forest was dead silent. No wind, no birds, no life. Then he saw it.in the clearing behind the tower, where there had been nothing before. Now stood a rusted metal door, embedded into the ground, no frame, no hinges, just there, covered in moss and dirt. It pulsed slightly as if breathing. Aaron approached and placed his hand on the surface. It was warm tea. Stepped back, unsure whether this was real or just another hallucination from the frequency. At that moment, Lillian called. She had analyzed the radio wave Aaron had been exposed to the night before. Her voice trembled. "Aaron, that frequency.it carries a sublayer, a kind of mental loop. It's implanting a sequence of thoughts, like instructions, I think it's trying to guide you somewhere." Aaron hesitated. What if it's not guiding, but luring? He didn't tell her about the door. Not yet. Later that night, Aaron reviewed the footage from his chest camera. Something was wrong. There were frames just fractions of a second where he wasn't. Alone in the clearing, a pale figure stood behind him, tall, silent, unmoving and humanly still. And each time the frame appeared, the audio captured the same sound, a soft, mechanical whisper. "He's close now." Aaron paused the video and zoomed in. The figure's eyes were completely black. The next morning, Aaron and Lillian returned to the site together, but the metal door was gone. There was no trace it had ever been there, and no disturbed snow, and no heat signatures, nothing. "I swear it was here," Aaron muttered. "They don't stay open forever," Niska said, stepping out from behind a tree. They hadn't heard her approach. She handed Lillian a folded piece of hide. Inside was a painted drawing of the same hallway Aaron had seen, complete with the door at the end Cree script. It read, "Do not follow the echoes. They are not the child." Lillian's voice broke. "What does that mean?" But Niska just turned and walked away, vanishing into the woods as silently as she had appeared that night. Aaron couldn't sleep. The radio turned on. Again at 3:33 a.m. This time, there was no voice, just footsteps slow echoing as if walking down a corridor made of metal and bone. Then the whisper returned. "Almost there," and Aaron, trembling, whispered back, "I'm listening." Voices beneath the ice. Lillian returned to the regional lab in Whitehorse to further analyze the subharmonic signals in Aaron's recordings. She knew what they were trying to do. The frequency wasn't just emitting sound, it was transmitting memory patterns. The waveforms mimic neural resonance. They weren't speaking to the ears, they were speaking to the brain. Meanwhile, Aaron stayed in the village, isolated but determined. He couldn't shake the image of that door, nor the eyes of the thing that stood behind him. He decided to explore the area more deeply, not the buildings, but beneath them. According to old mining maps Niska had given him, there were forgotten tunnels running beneath the old station, remnants of an unfinished Cold War project to build underground shelters in the north. Most believed the plans were abandoned. Niska didn't. She warned him again. "Do not go underground. That is where it waits. But Aaron was already descending to find an old maintenance hatch behind the collapsed transmission shack that IT was rusted but intact. With some effort, he pried it open and climbed down into the darkness. The air below was thick, moist, and unnaturally warm. His flashlight flickered, not from low battery, but interference. The walls were lined with cracked insulation and flaking lead panels. Every few feet, the tunnel branched into other corridors, some of which looked too new. As he turned a corner, his radio crackled even though it was turned off. "Do you remember the cold?" a voice asked, soft and hollow. Aaron froze. "You used to be afraid of the lake," the voice continued. "It saw you drown." Aaron backed up, heart pounding. He was alone, or supposed to be. Then the air shifted. The temperature dropped instantly. Frost formed along the edges of the tunnel. His breath turned visible, fogging the lens of his camera. And then, from the far end of the tunnel, something began to crawl toward him. Not walk, crawl. The sound of bones scraping against concrete. Aaron dropped the flashlight in the momentary flicker. He saw a figure, bent, twisted, wrong. Its face not a face, a mask of ice, featureless except for a gaping hole where the mouth should have been. And from that mouth came the radio static. Aaron ran. He scrambled up the hatch, slammed it shut, and didn't stop until he reached the village again. He collapsed on Niska's porch. She didn't say a word, just handed him a cup of tea. "It's not the child," she whispered. "It's what took him." Back at the lab, Lillian made a breakthrough point. One specific pattern in the signal repeated exactly every 13 minutes and 33 seconds wasn't a sound at all. It was coordinates, geographic ones. When she plotted the numbers, her blood ran cold. They pointed to the center of a frozen lake, 11 kilometers north of the station. A lake that hadn't thawed in over 60 years. A lake where, according to a single archived newspaper clipping from 1954, 4 children had vanished during a school field trip. Only their backpacks were found, each with the same symbol carved inside an inverted circle with 3 lines. Aaron and Lillian regrouped that night. He told her everything: the voice, the tunnels, the creature. "It doesn't just talk through the radio," he said. "It is the radio." Lillian looked shaken. "Whatever this is, it's learning. It's adapting to human patterns, and now it knows we're trying to find it." Aaron stood and opened the notebook Niska gave them. In it, he found something he hadn't seen before: a page folded and sealed with wax. He broke it open. Inside was a single sentence, written in shaking handwriting. "Once it speaks in your voice, it's already inside. When it speaks in your voice." Aaron couldn't sleep that night. The voice hadn't returned, but now IT didn't need to. When he played back his latest recordings from the underground tunnel, he noticed something was off. The audio file was labeled as recorded at 3:33 a.m., but he hadn't been awake at that time, or so he thought. And yet, there was a full 5-minute clip of someone speaking into the microphone. IT was his voice. But he had no memory of ever saying those words. "They think I'm still outside, but I've already crossed over. It's warmer here." Quieter. Aaron's hands trembled as he paused the file. There was a click at the end, the sound of a door closing. A low hum followed, almost like breathing. He sent the clip to Lillian, who was now setting up AM field monitors around the frozen lake. When she ran the voice through vocal analysis, her blood turned to ice. The pitch, tone, resonance all matched Aaron's voice exactly. But there was no vocal tremor, no natural fluctuations. IT was perfect, too perfect. "Aaron," she said over the phone, "this wasn't a recording of you. IT was a reconstruction of your voice. As if something was practicing." Meanwhile, Aaron met Niska one last time. She led him deep into the forest to a weathered stone altar, hidden beneath the roots of a massive cedar. On it lay dozens of names, carved into the stone. Most were faded. One was fresh. Aaron Grant stepped back in horror. Niska didn't speak at first, then she looked him in the eyes. "The land doesn't just remember. IT keeps a list." She gave him a bone pendant etched with a circle and line symbol. If it calls your name back through the static, that you must not answer. That night, Lillian noticed something strange on her equipment, that a magnetic spike coming from the lake, not once repeating every 3 minutes and 33 seconds. Each spike was stronger than the last at 3:33 a.m. exactly. All of her monitors shut off. Her watch stopped. The temperature outside dropped by 10 degrees in seconds, and then she heard her own voice. "Lillian, come closer." Not from the radio, from the ice. She staggered back, trying not to look directly at it. Something that shifted below the surface, not like a fish or a person. Too large, too long, too wrong. The ice didn't crack that IT breathed. Back at the village, Aaron had boarded up the windows of the station. He wore the pendant around his neck, but it pulsed now, like a heartbeat AS. If warning him, he tried to call Lillian, but the phone only rang once. Then his own voice answered. "I told you that I am already inside." He smashed the phone. He turned on the radio to static, and this time, the voice that came through was neither the child nor the creature that IT was Niska. But Niska had died that morning at dawn. Aaron walked to her cabin to confront her. IT was empty, that long abandoned, the dust-covered furniture. Rotten food on the table, that a photograph of a young Cree boy, the same child from the recordings, hung on the wall. Cracked and yellowed, that on the back was a note. "Do not trust its face, that IT wears everyone you love." Aaron stood frozen in the doorway. From behind him, in the exact tone of Lillian's voice, he heard, "Aaron, you're not supposed to be here." He turned and saw that himself. The doppelganger protocol. Aaron didn't scream, that he didn't move. He just stared at the version of himself standing in the doorway of Niska's cabin. Same eyes, same scar on the right temple. Even the same nervous tick, the subtle twitch in the left eyebrow head had since childhood. But this thing was too still, too perfect. "Aaron," it repeated again, smiling now. "You're not supposed to be here." Aaron stepped back slowly. The other Aaron mirrored him, step for step. When Aaron reached for his camera, the doppelganger did the same, but one beat behind. Just one. That's how Aaron knew IT was only mimicking. He lunged out of the cabin and ran through the snow, heart pounding, lungs burning. Behind him, he could hear heavy footfalls, not running, but pacing. The thing wasn't chasing. IT was waiting. Back at the station, Lillian was watching satellite thermal scans of the lake area. One image in particular caught her attention, taken at 3:33 a.m. the night before. IT showed the entire frozen lake lighting up in body heat. Thousands of faint signatures, all humanoid, all motionless, all beneath the ice. She zoomed in. They formed a shape, that a perfect circle, crossed by 3 lines. No, 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 no. She picked up her bag and raced to the truck. She needed to find Aaron. Whatever was happening was escalating and fast. Aaron had barricaded himself in a radio station. He wrapped the Cree pendant around the microphone and began broadcasting a loop. "This is Aaron Grant. If anyone can hear me, do not come here. The frequency is alive. IT knows your voice. IT wears your face." He repeated it 3 times. On the 4th loop, something strange happened. The message answered itself. "This is Aaron Grant. I am already inside. Do not come here. Please to help me." Aaron stared in disbelief. That wasn't the recording. That was live audio. But from where? He shut off the broadcast. Silence. Then, in the static, a child's voice whispered, "You left me in the lake, remember?" Aaron dropped the headset. "What do you want from me?" he shouted. And not the one who the radio cut him off with a loud shriek. Not feedback. Not static. A scream. His scream. Recorded from last night, but he hadn't screamed. Lillian arrived shortly after. Aaron opened the door with a shotgun in hand. He didn't lower it right away. "Tell me something only you would know," he demanded. She hesitated. "The first time we met, you spilled coffee on my recorder and tried to blame the intern." He lowered the gun, only half convinced. "That's good," he said. "But it still could be you." Lillian looked at him with tears in her eyes. "Then we're both already gone." They sat down and compared notes. Lillian showed him the satellite image, there, gathering. Under the ice, hundreds, maybe thousands, that I don't think these are spirits. Aaron, that I think this is a form of consciousness, that IT collects identity. Memory voice. A digital haunting, Aaron muttered. Lillian nodded. But physical IT can project, replicate, and possibly possess. And the lake, I think it's the entry point. Aaron showed her the sealed message from Niska's book. Once it speaks in your voice, it's already inside. Lillian flipped the page. There was a drawing underneath of a mirror cracked down the middle, with two identical figures on either side. But one had black eyes, that a warning. We have to go to the lake, Aaron whispered. We already did, a voice said. They turned. Standing in the doorway was Lillian, but she hadn't moved. The Lillian in the doorway was smiling. Her eyes were black. The mirror's reflection. Aaron's breath came in short gasps as he faced the shadowy figure, wearing Lillian's face. The room around them felt colder, darker, like the air itself was being sucked out. The doppelganger smiled, but its eyes were void's black holes that seemed to swallow light. You're afraid, it whispered with Aaron's voice, but twisted in a sinister tone. But fear makes it easier to become me. Aaron stumbled backward, clutching the pendant Niska gave him. It pulsed faintly, glowing with a dim blue light, as if trying to warn him. Suddenly, his own reflection flickered in the cracked window, except it wasn't his. The reflection smiled first. They can copy faces, voices, memories. Lillian's voice cracked through the radio. But not your soul. Aaron gritted his teeth. Then how do we stop it? You don't, Lillian said, voice trembling. You survive it. The doppelganger lunged forward, and Aaron shut his eyes. When he opened them, the figure was gone. But his own reflection, that was still smiling. The frozen lake beckons. Aaron and Lillian set out at dawn toward the coordinates hidden in the radio signal. The frozen lake stretched before them, an endless sheet of ice shimmering under a pale sun. The wind whispered secrets through the snow-dusted trees. Niska's warnings echoed in Aaron's mind. The lake doesn't just hide the past, IT holds it prisoner. As they crossed the ice, Aaron's pendant pulsed faster. The air grew heavy, almost viscous. Suddenly, the radio crackled to life. The voice was faint, a child calling out. Help me! The ice beneath their feet groaned. Shadows flickered beneath the surface, long, twisting shapes that seemed to watch them from below. Lillian scanned with her equipment, her face pale. There's a pattern in the freezing. The ice itself is alive. A sudden crack split the silence. The ice fractured in front of them, revealing a dark opening. From the depths came a cold, wet breath. Aaron swallowed hard. The lake was calling. The footsteps beneath the ice. The storm had passed, but a different kind of silence had settled over the expedition camp. IT was no longer the peaceful hush of a snow-blanketed wilderness. This silence had weight. IT pressed against the ears, muting even the crackle of the radio. IT was as though the landscape itself was holding its breath. Marie stood at the edge of the cracked ice sheet, where they had lost Travis. Her gloved hand trembled slightly as she held the thermal scanner. The machine beeped erratically, no consistent readings, just sudden spikes and drops. IT was the same behavior they'd seen when they were near the pit. She turned to Anders, who hadn't slept in nearly 2 days. His eyes were bloodshot, and he spoke in hushed tones as if afraid something might be listening. There's something down there, he whispered. Something that knows we're here. The others had begun calling it the whisper, referring to the strange, fragmented voices that came through the radio. They had recorded one of the transmissions and played it back, only to hear their own voices repeating sentences they never remembered saying. But last night, the voice had said Travis' name. Marie lowered the scanner and took a step forward. A hollow echo came back from beneath the ice, like a cavern breathing. Then she heard it, footsteps, not on top of the ice but below it, slow, heavy, deliberate, and they weren't alone. They see through the snow. The biting wind howled as Aaron and Lillian cautiously approached the dark fissure that had opened in the ice. The chill seeped through their layers, but an unnatural warmth radiated from the gaping maw below. Aaron's breath crystallized in the air as he scanned the icy abyss with his flashlight. The beam caught something moving just beneath the surface pale, elongated shapes gliding silently through the frozen water. Suddenly, the shadows rose, breaking the surface like ghostly specters, their eyes, if they could be called, that glowed faintly with an eerie blue light, penetrating the swirling snow. Lillian's voice trembled over the radio. "These do whatever they aren't human. They watch, they wait, and they see everything." Aaron gripped his pendant tightly as one figure emerged fully, its form shifting like liquid ice, its mouth opening in a silent scream. Behind them, the snow whispered in voices, each syllable a warning, or perhaps a lure. "You can't hide from what sees through the snow." The fissure widened. The cold breath of the lake became a chorus of whispers, drawing them closer, daring them to step inside. Echoes in the frozen depths. Aaron and Lillian hesitated at the edge of the icy fissure, the eerie glow beneath illuminating swirling shadows that twisted and danced like restless spirits trapped beneath the surface. The whispers from the lake had grown louder, morphing into faint, echoing voices that seemed to call their names. Gathering their courage, they lowered themselves into the freezing water, the cold burning through their gloves and boots. Every stroke deeper felt like penetrating into a living memory, frozen moments. Trapped in time, they descended. Spectral shapes drifted around them, faces blurred and distorted mouths moving silently, as if trying to speak forgotten words. The water shimmered with unnatural light, and the ice above fractured and reformed like a breathing organism. Suddenly, Aaron's radio crackled with static, then a clear message: "You were never meant to leave." Lillian's heart pounded as a chilling realization set in. The lake wasn't just a prison. It was a gate, and something on the other side was waiting. The breath beneath the ice. The moment Aaron and Lillian crossed beneath the ice's fractured surface, the world shifted. The freezing water gave way to an otherworldly warmth, a pulse like a heartbeat reverberating through the depths. Shapes coalesced in the dim glow, ancient faces half forgotten by time, their eyes reflecting a sadness older than the land itself. The air, thick and heavy, carried whispers of promises broken and debts unpaid. Suddenly, the warmth turned cold, a suffocating chill wrapping around them like chains. The spectral figures closed in, their movements synchronized like a mournful dance, circling the intruders with silent intent. Aaron felt the pendant around his neck grow hotter, its glow flickering wildly. Lillian's breath hitched as the whispers crescendoed into a single voice. "Welcome back, Tio." The beginning. Time seemed to collapse. Memories surged, flashes of children lost to the lake, their laughter twisted into screams, their faces etched in ice. And in that moment, Aaron understood the truth. The lake was not just a prison for the lost, but a beacon for something ancient, something that had waited patiently beneath the ice, and now it had awakened. The last signal. Aaron and Lillian stood side by side beneath the ice, the weight of centuries pressing down on them. The lake's breath slowed, the whispers fading into a heavy silence that felt like the calm before a storm. Around them, the frozen faces of the lost children watched with hollow eyes, neither accusing nor forgiving, just waiting. Suddenly, the pendant's light burst into a blinding glow, illuminating a jagged fissure in the ice. From it, a cold, spectral hand reached out, fragile yet impossibly strong. Aaron's voice cracked as he whispered, "We came to end this." The water around them churned, shadows twisting into shapes both familiar and monstrous. The child's laughter echoed once more, bittersweet and haunting. "You freed us," it said, "but now you must choose." Lillian's eyes met Aaron's. The choice was clear yet terrifying. Stay trapped in this endless echo, a prisoner of the signal, or return to a world forever changed, haunted by what they'd heard beneath the ice. Aaron reached for the pendant, gripping it tight. The lake trembled, the signal pulsing one final time. With a final, agonizing breath, they surfaced breaking. The ice's cold grip back on solid ground. The radio fell silent, but deep in the northern wilderness, the faintest signal stirred, waiting for the next listener. The end. Thank you for joining me on this chilling journey into the unknown. If this story sent shivers down your spine, don't keep it to yourself. Drop a comment below and share your thoughts or fears. Your likes and subscriptions mean the world and help bring more stories like this to life. So, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't yet, and ring the bell to never miss a new mystery. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.